Welcome to Hidden Reality. In 2017, a Rolex Daytona, once owned by the legendary actor Paul Newman, went up for auction. The final hammer price? A staggering 150 crore rupees. That is tens of millions of dollars. There was no extra gold on this watch, no hidden diamonds, and the technology inside certainly wasn't from the future.
So this brings us to a massive open question. Why? Why did the ultra-wealthy, from global billionaires to royalty, spend fortunes on a mechanical device that does the exact same thing as a cheap digital watch? After all, time itself is completely free. Does a luxury watch actually track time better, or is there a psychological secret hidden deep inside its gears?
Today, we're unraveling this multi-million-dollar mystery. We're going to trace the unbelievable journey of how humanity took time, a wild, invisible force of nature, and successfully trapped it inside a tiny metal box on our wrists. And we will see how that very journey created today's astronomical luxury watch market. We will follow this story through 5 stages. First, the cost of time. Second, borrowing time from nature. Third, trapping time in machines. Fourth, the wristwatch revolution. And finally, the psychology of luxury.
Part 1. The cost of time. To understand this mystery, we have to strip away everything you think you know about the clock on your wall. Watches do not create time. They merely count it. Time itself is like an invisible river. It has no shape, no color, no smell, and absolutely no weight. You cannot touch it or hold it in your hands. And this was the greatest challenge for early human civilization. How do you measure something that you cannot even see? Part 2. Borrowing time from nature. To solve this impossible problem, humanity had to look upward. We entered the era of borrowing time. All the way back around 3500 BC, the Egyptians noticed that shadows moved predictably with the sun. This led to the invention of the sundial, which divided the day into 24 parts, literally the foundation of our modern 24-hour system. But sundials only worked when the sun was shining, so the Greeks popularized the water clock, which dripped water at specific levels to mark the passing minutes. Later, we even saw the invention of candle clocks, which relied on the steady melting rate of wax. But there was a fatal flaw in all of these early systems. Nature is brutally inconsistent. A sundial is completely useless on a cloudy day. Water in a water clock becomes dense and flows slower when the temperature drops. A candle burns faster if there is a sudden gust of wind. Humanity soon reached a philosophical breakthrough. To truly count time accurately, we had to stop relying on nature's erratic behavior. We needed to invent our own, artificial, perfectly predictable rhythm. Part 3. Trapping time in machines. By the 1500s, this need for an artificial rhythm sparked one of the most important mechanical revolutions in history. We decided to build our own time machines. Before the Renaissance, clocks were massive, heavy machines stuck in church towers, powered by gravity. Then, a German clockmaker named Peter Henlein invented the mainspring. This was a tightly coiled metal strip that stored energy, making clocks portable for the very first time. They were called Nuremberg eggs. But there was a problem. They were terribly inaccurate, releasing energy unpredictably. That is, until the escapement was refined and scientist Christian Huygens invented the balance spring, giving the watch a reliable, oscillating heartbeat. The escapement is the brilliant, unsung hero of watchmaking. Imagine a massive water dam. If you open the gates all at once, the water crashes out in a destructive flood. But if you open and close the gate quickly, letting just a little water out at a time, it flows perfectly. The escapement is that mechanical gatekeeper. It stops the mainspring from uncoiling all at once, releasing the stored energy in slow, controlled, and equal steps. If you have a mechanical watch nearby, hold it up to your ear. Listen closely. That famous tick-tock sound, that is the literal sound of the escapement physically chopping stored energy into exact fractions of a second. It is the sound of humanity successfully trapping and counting invisible time. With this one invention, we bypassed nature entirely. We created our own artificial universe inside a tiny metal box. And this newfound accuracy wasn't just a neat trick, it became a matter of absolute survival. In 1714, the British Parliament passed the Longitude Act. They offered a massive fortune to anyone who could solve timekeeping at sea, because ships were constantly getting lost and crashing without knowing their exact east-west location. Clockmaker John Harrison eventually solved this with the marine chronometer.
Later, during the Industrial Revolution, accurate time literally meant life or death to prevent scheduled steam trains from colliding on the tracks. Time was no longer just a luxury, it was critical infrastructure.
Part 4. The Wristwatch Revolution. Time was now accurate and portable, but it was still hidden away in people's pockets. So how did it finally make the jump to our wrists? In 1810, Abraham Louis Breguet designed a watch on a bracelet for the Queen of Naples, creating the first documented wristwatch. But for decades, it was strictly seen as delicate women's jewelry. Fast forward to 1904. Brazilian aviation pioneer Alberto Santos Dumont complained that pulling out a pocket watch while flying an airplane was highly dangerous. So his friend Louis Cartier designed the Santos watch, the first purpose-built men's wristwatch. But the true turning point didn't happen until 1914.
World War I changed the trajectory of timekeeping forever. In the muddy, brutal trenches, soldiers had to synchronize artillery attacks down to the very second. Fumbling for a pocket watch meant certain death. So soldiers began soldering wire lugs onto their pocket watches and strapping them to their wrists with raw leather. Suddenly, the perception of the wristwatch completely flipped. When battle-hardened soldiers returned home wearing them, the wristwatch transformed from delicate jewelry into the ultimate symbol of masculinity, discipline, and survival.
Part 5. The Psychology of Luxury. Which brings us to the modern era and the answer to our multi-million-dollar mystery. If mass production made watches cheap and accessible, why do luxury watches cost so much today? It all comes down to intrinsic versus perceived value. A $5 digital watch has high intrinsic utility. It is cheap and perfectly accurate. But luxury operates entirely on perceived value. Think of a masterpiece painting. The canvas and paint cost almost nothing, but the art sells for millions because of the story it tells. When someone buys a multi-million-dollar luxury watch, they aren't paying for raw metal or better timekeeping. They are paying for story. This perceived value is built on 3 massive pillars. First is pure craftsmanship. Master watchmakers spend months hand-assembling hundreds of microscopic parts with absolutely zero margin for error. You are buying centuries of human tradition. Second is in-group signaling. If you wear an ultra-rare timepiece into a boardroom, you don't need to say a single word. The 1% of people who recognize it instantly know your status. It is a secret, silent language. And third is manufactured scarcity. Brands intentionally limit their supply. They might only make 50 pieces of a specific design, driving the demand and the price completely through the roof. So we return to Paul Newman's record-breaking Rolex. The buyer wasn't buying time. They were buying the legacy, the story, and the human touch. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting nature just to measure time, only to turn the very tools we invented into the ultimate symbols of our own identity. It leaves you wondering, when you look down at your own wrist, are you wearing a watch to track the time, or are you wearing it to tell the world a story about exactly who you are? Subscribe to Hidden Reality for more incredible true stories and hidden realities from around the world.